Hello there. Thank you for staying with us and welcome to another edition of Channels Beam. I'm Victor Matthias. Now, the governor of Lagos State, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, has warned of a possible third wave of the coronavirus pandemic and in the state and Nigeria by extension. The governor said the rapid increase within a week gives great cause for concern, where the test positivity rate has gone from 1.1% at the end of June to its current rate of 6.6% as at 8th of July 2021. But to get more on this, we are joined by Adediran Adelekon. He is a medical doctor with a master's in healthcare business and public administration. He is the founder of Check Body Limited and a lecturer of policy analysis. He joins us via Zoom from Birkirkara in Malta. It's a pleasure to have you on the program today, Doctor.
Thank you for having me.
Indeed. You're welcome. So let's begin. I mean, the world is, gradually opening, but as it is now, concerns are being raised that a third wave of the pandemic is about to hit almost everywhere. What is the reason behind this increase in numbers, so to speak, now?
So there's a new variant of the COVID-19 virus called the Delta variant, but the lineage is specifically B16172. This particular variant has been found to be more transmissible, about 40 to 60% even more transmissible when compared to the Alpha variant. And recently in Nigeria, this variant of the COVID vaccine a few days ago was discovered and sequenced by the NCDC, the Nigerian Center of Disease Control, at the reference center in Abuja.
All right. So as it is now, what is the difference? Because they say this new variant that you made mention of is even more deadly than the other ones that we've seen so far. So what is different this time around?
So the ability of the virus to escape your immune reaction is what makes it more evasive. There are still scientific explorations ongoing to discover more about this virus, but from the research that is available so far, the UK government have been able to confirm that at least the existing vaccines are about 80% effective in checking this very aggressive virus variant.
Yeah, pretty much. So it seems, we've been moving from one variant to the other. How many variants are there, and what's the possibility of seeing another one maybe in the future?
It is natural for viruses to have mutation, so they change in form, and due to that, our immune system is not able to discover it. And fortunately, I'm emphasizing this because we need to encourage vaccination. This is the evidence we have at hand. The existing vaccines, at least AstraZeneca, Pfizer, and even Bharat, they are effective to some extent in checkmating even these new variants. So it's not like because of we've had so many variants, all the vaccines are useless. That's not true. From the existing evidence we have in literatures, the CDC, the World Health Organization, it is very clear that the vaccines approved still have some efficacy against even this Delta variant.
All right, so we've seen that Pfizer and BioNTech, they are saying that they want to seek approval so that the vaccine can be taken in three separate parts. Do you perhaps know what could be behind that that request?
No, I don't know specifically what has informed that decision, but of course, different vaccines have different number of doses. I myself, I took Johnson & Johnson, which is just one dose, and according to the publications, it's enough to cover me. in terms of the immune response from the vaccination. So I think what matters, regardless of the number of doses you have to take to be completely vaccinated, is to complete the vaccination. For instance, taking just one vaccine uh, is just about 30% effective in preventing this new variant. I mean, preventing serious illness and even death with this new variant. But taking two doses, according to this UK government study, 80% effective. So we should all get vaccinated, complete number of doses, regardless of if it is one, two, or three.
So one of the things that has also, been, pretty much always talked about is the fact that how you take the vaccine and then maybe perhaps you're free from there. But what exactly is the situation? I mean, if you take the vaccine, how immune are you? Not even, to the virus, but also in passing it to others, so to speak. Now.
So yes, the available evidence we have stipulates that the vaccine prevents from serious illness and death. That does not mean that because you got vaccinated, you wouldn't get the infection, but definitely it prevents you and others from serious illness and consequently death.
All right, then I'd have to say thank you to you, Dr. Adelekon Adediran, for joining us today on the program and sharing your thoughts. Hopefully, things won't be bad. I mean, far worse than they are as it is now, and the world would open up just as it has begun already. Thank you again for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, you're welcome. Now, governors from regional blocs in the country have been meeting and deliberating on the way forward for their regions and the country at large. However, while some have hailed the resolutions of such meetings, some believe a slap on the wrist rather than a tap on the back is what they deserve. We will also be looking at that. And we have joining us from our Abuja studio, Ferami Jude. He is the Executive Director of To Build a Nation, a citizen movement towards political reforms in Nigeria. It's a pleasure to have you today on the program.
Thank you very much, Victor. I'm now convener for Raising New Voices, though. To Build a Nation has a new executive director. But thanks for having me on the show.
Fantastic. I want to believe you all have similar modus operandi and a motto as well. But let's first of all even look at the fact that we're having governors from the regions of the country coming together to chart a course for their regions and the country at large. I don't want to sound negative here, but some might say this is kind of a decisive or a divisive move. But what's your take on that?
I think that on a general perspective, majority of people in the southern part of the country, especially because of the vacuum, the lack of leadership at the national level that we perceive, are starting to feel like, well, maybe the governors are actually now starting to do something and say something about the situation. But if you look at it even more deeply, you find out that, in my opinion, and I think I should be clear about that, the governors have taken a much more populist perspective than a problem-solving perspective in some of their resolutions that they've put out. I was just thinking now before, we started this segment, that you have a situation where the 17 states in the South have come, with the governors have come and said, this is exactly what we want. Now, there is a Senate, and each of those states have 3 senators representing the interest of the state, right? And a House of Reps, where each of these states have representatives for the people. And not one of these states, not one of these members representing the state or the people from the southern governors has raised a bill at the National Assembly talking about, for example, state police, or talking about restructuring, for example. So I begin to see that, especially when it comes to issues of the resolutions that I'm making around farmers' herders clashes, for example, is this a populist perspective or is this a problem-solving perspective? You look at the issue of having the presidency zoned to the south. And I'm starting to think, why should we even have elected governors who have a demography or a geographical area where people are suffering, where there is insecurity, thinking about 2023? How does that benefit? And I mean, we understand what politics looks like in Nigeria today. How does the presidency coming to the south benefit the average farmer in Elisha or in Ilesha or in Habiokuta, for example, who has an insecurity problem and cannot go back to the farm?
Sorry to butt in, Jude. One of the things that, like you made mention now, the southern governors, one of the things they have also talked about is the issue of state police. I think maybe that would address the issue of farmer-herder clashes in the southwest. Do you think that will?
I believe strongly that that is the way to go. But you see that, I mean, before the last meeting that they had, I think one of the very first meetings that they had, they mentioned that open grazing will now be banned in the southern part of the country. And I believe they now have even a deadline for it. Again, like I said, the average southern Nigerian believes that, and I mean, the word southern Nigerian is very, very new. I must have that, right? But the average person living in southern Nigeria feels like, okay, maybe they're starting to do something about that. But it doesn't. Does that solve the problem of insecurity? Does that maybe solve the problem of the farmers' herders clashes, right? But when you have herders who've been living here for years, right, now cannot graze openly, don't have the money to go to build ranches, and there's no design whatsoever to put them in cooperatives, right? So what you have is a set of people scattered across different communities in the entire southern part of the country who have nothing to do and cattle that can't feed. That's another security crisis for those communities where they now begin to settle. So I go back to the first point I made. Is this a populist perspective or a problem-solving perspective? Look at the state police that you mentioned, right? There is no reason, including members, I mean, in the southern part of the country, you have 17 states. 8 is being governed by APC, 8 is being covered by PDP, and 1 by HAPGAR. In each of these states, you have representatives, you have senators. Not one of them has said, okay, the southern governors have said we want state police. Why? What is stopping us from raising a bill in National Assembly to start talking about state police? The senators represent the interest of the state. So if the governors can make these propositions, what is the action point really in trying to get this done democratically? And that's my opinion on the perspective that has been raised. And without apologies to anybody really, majority of the governors hide their incompetence under this populist narrative that we're now starting to see. You go to some states, nothing is happening there. And once the governor starts talking about Fulani people and the insecurity, then they say maybe our governor is talking. And this is the pattern that you begin to see. Say populism doesn't get us anywhere. And this is my honest opinion. I stand to be corrected. People can raise arguments or debates about it. But we need to solve problems. When the society elects governors, they elect governors to solve the problem in society. Now we have an insecurity problem. We don't want to rub it in the face and say, okay, now we're going to ban open grazing, or now the next thing to do that will solve Nigeria's problems in the southern part of the country is for the presidency to be zoned to the south. And I was thinking about something here. See, when you have a body like the Southern Governors Forum, right, make these kind of resolutions and then mix a lot of all the issues that they're talking about, which, they should be talking about, with the political parts. And talking about zoning and talking about bringing, you mix a lot of issues together and you cause even more division.
All right, so we'll talk about more about zoning in a moment, but we'll have to take a quick break now. And when we return, we'll take a look at the zoning issue as well as the Electoral Act that is about to be passed in the National Assembly. That's in a moment. Please stay with us. Well, thank you for staying with us. We still have with us Jude Perami, who is joining us from the Abuja studio of Channels Television. Jude, again, just before we went on break, you were about to start a conversation about how, they're also talking about where or which region should produce the next president. But just before we get into that, let's take a look at the electoral bill, which is in the House of Assembly. It's in the National Assembly, I beg your pardon, which has also drawn a lot of furore from various quarters. But what are you looking at? Some people have actually raised certain issues. For example, now the amount of monies that can be spent during campaigns, from the State House of Assembly to governorship to, senatorial and even the president. What issue strikes out the most for you in the bill?
I think that the bill in its entirety, there is a draft. I think I need to mention that the Joint Committee worked on a draft bill after the public hearing in December, and that draft report that we saw was something good enough to bring about electoral reform and make our elections more free, fair, and credible, and more transparent. What we've seen in the last couple of days is an entirely different version, which seeks, number one, which is what I believe is the most important in answering your question, is it prohibits electronic transmission of vote results. That is a clause that legalizes the rigging machinery in this country, the election rigging machinery in this country. That, I mean, I bet, I stand to be corrected. The only route the majority of the politicians that we have in this country today know to get into power. Now, the bill clearly states that the Electoral Commission can, in its own discretion, conduct our elections using electronic voting. The bill also guarantees that when a voter is supposed to be accredited, the voter will be accredited using a technological device. In fact, the bill goes ahead to say that if there is a polling unit and the smart card readers are not working, and the commission cannot get smart card readers, a technology device cannot get a smart card reader to the polling unit, the elections will not hold in that polling unit until the next 24 hours when the commission can get a technology device, which is a smart card reader, to that place. So we have electronic accreditation, right? The bill by the National Assembly guarantees that INEC can, in its own discretion, conduct elections using electronic voting. But when we get to where the results of the election, the voice of the people, the will of the people is to be announced, the bill says that it is prohibited that INEC would transmit elections electronically in our country. That is a travesty, to say the least. And you begin to see that the spirit of having to manipulate elections to favor those who are already in power continues all the way to how they have increased the amount of money that you need to run for elections in terms of campaign finance, how they have deleted completely the recommendation that political parties should have a cap on amounts that they can charge for nomination fees and expression of interest fees. You see that continues up to the point where a polling unit officer, according to this current version that we're seeing, a polling unit officer would not need to make recourse to a result that is electronically transmitted if he wants to declare what happens or who won in an election. You see that the same spirit of manipulating the elections up to the point that INEC, under this new version of this bill that we're seeing, can no longer review an election result declared under duress. So again, the entirety in fact, the way I like to put it is the spirit of this version that we're seeing, of this law that's about to be passed, that will be laid on the floor of the House tomorrow, is anti any reform to electoral process. In fact, in my opinion, it legalizes the rigging machinery that exists in this country. And Nigerians have to, people have been calling their representatives for Raising New Voices organization initiative, rather. We've had people doing technology platforms for people to reach out to their representatives and call them and tell them that these clauses, this bill is important to the future of our democracy. And the stakes are high. We live in a country today where people are agitating for secession for different parts of the country. You see, we're just talking about Southern Governors Forum's resolutions, and where it now seems as though there is a Northern Nigerian people or peoples of Northern Nigeria, and on the other hand, the peoples of Southern Nigeria. A division that is clear, crystal clear, never been this divided in this country, right? The final hope that we even think of, maybe Nigerians can go to the polls and decide and say, this is what I believe in, and these are the candidates that will then go ahead into power to make that happen. This electoral process has been rigged. So what would
you be expecting, especially as you said now that you've been raising some awareness and also asking people to call their representatives? How sure are you that they would heed the call, of those they are representing and maybe not vote for the bill to pass?
Well, first thing I would like to recommend and to ask is that any honorable member of the House or Senate or Senator who is in the House and supports that our electoral process should be reformed should ensure that there is no voice votes. The ayes have it or the nays have it tomorrow or on Wednesday when there is a clause-by-clause recommendation. Because with the process that we have laid on the ground, and the portal for Nigerians is callyourreps.raisingNewVoices.org.
All right.
Nigerians can go to that portal free of charge to call their representatives. Representatives have sent messages saying, yes, I have heard what you said, and we're going to raise it at the floor of the House. My
right.
honorables who represent me in Osun from Osun State have sent messages saying, we're going to support this bill, we're going to do it. So we have people in the House who actually want the electoral process to be reformed. So
All right,
what we have to do is get more Nigerians calling and saying, this is what the people want.
Let's hope that more Nigerians make that call and tell their representatives what they want exactly as the bill will be put forward on the floor of the House. But I have to say thank you as well for joining us today on the program, Jude Farami.
Thank you very much. I seem passionate about that, but apologies if I overshot anything. Well, thank you very much for having me.
That's okay. Of course, you're welcome.
This week's Top 5 Videos Countdown begins on a rather sad note. It's the death of legendary singer, songwriter, and producer Olariwaju Fasasi, popularly known as Sound Sultan. It's followed in fourth position by another similar event, the burial of Prophet T.B. Joshua. In third is yet another death-related video, but this time not of a celebrated Nigerian citizen, but a wanted robber in River State.
Among the ghastly acts of this notorious criminal was the kidnap of a barrister in Melogu, who they kidnapped and killed after collecting ransom.
The governors believe that the only way to set the country and bring it to an inclusive strategy is to have the presidency zoned to the south.
Second place sees analysts give dissenting views on the resolution by southern governors.
If you want some presidency, the first thing you do is make sure that you work within your political party, make sure that a southern candidate emerges. Then you have to go to the rest of Nigeria and say, vote for this man, because he's from the south. Other people would say, no, I would vote for him if he convinced me that he is actually the best for Nigeria.
On first is the position of a senior advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, on night to rest in Nigeria.
Governors are right, perfectly in order in giving this directive. I have a situation where nocturnal arrests are made in a steps without, as if you are planning a coup. Take it, for instance, the invasion of the home of Igbo happened in the night.
And that's the show this week. Thank you so very much for watching. I'm Victor Matthias.